And the reason why I don't think Obama's going to win is he has fragmented his voter base. I
Can
mean,
you,
he's
Dar, just a second to concurrence. Dar, can you mute something or put headphones in?
I have headphones in.
Okay,
What
thank
does
you.
your
There's
name
just a
mean?
lot of background noise.
House of what? Dar, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. What's up?
It's all right. Before we
Your
come
your
to
name, what
that,
does it mean?
before we come to that, Almighty,
Yes.
just going back to concordance, you hadn't finished this point, and I interrupted him. I apologise.
yeah. No, I don't think Obama has managed to make either side of his party very happy. He's alienated sort of both elements by trying to split the middle. And I don't know, that just wasn't a very good strategy. And unless something major happens, he caught Osama way too early. He should have waited another year.
Almighty, you wanted to ask Dar about his name.
Yeah, what does your name mean?
It's actually a Drow name that I came up with. Drow is a subspecies of elf within the fantasy realms of like Dungeons and Dragons, Forgotten Realms,
I'm sorry you asked.
Warcraft. Yes, I'm a geek.
You don't need to
It sounded
apologise.
Arabic, so I was crossing my fingers hoping we had a Muslim guest. But
Yeah, we'll call you.
Almighty is the biggest geek amongst us, so you're amongst friends here.
Awesome.
But that said, what would you like to raise?
I wanted to actually talk about gay marriage itself and kind of lead into how they're grouping um, gay marriage with polygamy and the other things as well. Um, I would like to have different people's opinions here on why do you guys think that they're fighting so hard to stop gay marriage and to stop polygamy when, as it was pointed out earlier, polygamy was actually encouraged in their scriptures themselves.
well, it just
But it's a matter of interpretation of the scriptures. Almighty,
well, it just goes to show how much they've burned the candle at both ends in terms of butchering what's actually in the book versus what they actually practice. It's increasingly Christianity doesn't resemble itself. It doesn't represent its roots. For example, there's this term, a Christian burial, and then you have Christ saying, don't bury these people, let the dead bury the dead, and yet they call it a Christian burial because it's a responsibility to bury someone. And then you have, polygamy, which of course is, embraced in the Old Testament and then rejected by, I think, Peter and Paul, and at least for bishops. And then you have this other thing at the very top of this declaration that says, okay, it cites, here it is, creator endowed human rights. Now, obviously, the creator that they're referring to is supposed to be the biblical God, but there is absolutely nothing in the Bible about endowing anybody with any rights. The main theme is obedience, and it's even in the book of Job. He didn't say that Job had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He says, I can do whatever I want. I can take, the King of England had nothing on the God of the Old Testament. So, basically, Christianity is whatever they want it to be because they know that the people who are susceptible to this kind of populist rhetoric are the ones who could never make it through a reading of the Bible from from cover to cover. So they can say it goes all the way back to before the Bible was translated into a language that people could actually read. I bet there were a lot of priests when Gutenberg made his press and started making his Bibles in German who were saying, this is it, the jig's up, the ordinary peasants will read this book and that'll be it. They'll know that we're lying to them. And they did not bank on how intellectually lazy people could truly be.
well, that's not entirely true because, as we mentioned, I think in not the last show, the show before, people were being hung in this country for possessing a Bible in their own language. So I don't know. I think people did want to learn. It's just the church did not want them to learn.
Right.
I've got one. I've always. I'm sorry to get us a little off topic, but the one thing that Jesus said that no one apparently agrees with, which is Matthew 6, 5, and 6. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. So,
Someone needs to forward that to Rick Perry. Or,
exactly. All these,
Yeah,
movement towards public prayer, and Bachman is talking about, not being allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance. These are the kinds of things that are very anti-biblical, but that's not really the motivation. There's a cultural identity. There's a political party that is made up around these things, and they borrow what they want and they reject what they don't.
Do you think, for example, Concordance, that the homophobes are relying on the Bible, or they derive it from the Bible, or they are relying on the Bible for support of their homophobia? Which comes first, the Bible or the homophobia?
Yeah, it's been pointed out that the verse about that is an abomination is what it almost immediately preceded by a commandment against shellfish or wearing different types of cloth together, and of course no one points to those as fashion advice or dietary advice. So it doesn't really make sense that you would cherry pick out that one thing and become so insane about it. When it clearly was just a very minor element of a long prohibition of different things.
the
Well, if you
homophobia
watch,
comes first.
sorry,
There's no doubt about it.
sorry, Almighty, I interrupted you.
No,
Carry
I
on.
was just saying that's all I had to say. Just in a world in which none of these books had been written, there would still be homophobes, and you can see it in the conversations where people have, debates about homosexuality. If you defend homosexuality and defend people's right to exist as homosexuals or to get married, it's only a matter of time before someone accuses you of being homosexual. And likewise, if you attack homosexuals, you're going to be accused of being a closet homosexual. Everywhere you look, there's this connotation that it's a bad thing to be. Even people who defend homosexuality itself often use it as a snarky retort. So it's just considered an insult almost universally, unfortunately.
That raises another question then. Why is it that if it isn't from the Bible and people are naturally homophobic, why is that? What's that all about?
I would
Go ahead, Dar.
I would like to point something out here. Why is it that history itself seems to be ignored when it goes against what a lot of the right-wing Christians support, like homosexuality? Homosexuality has been recorded in every single society that we have records for,
And in animals.
And in animals. But in some societies, it was promoted. Like in Japan, thousands of years ago, samurai is considered love between two men to be one of the highest forms of love. It was promoted in the Romans. It was promoted in the Egyptians a little bit. It was promoted in Babylon.
Actually, less in Roman societies than Greek societies. Romans considered it unmanly.
True. I'm sorry. I
And
got
I think
the two
that's really
confused.
what it often boils down to. Is it's this ideal that that there's this package deal of masculinity that includes the majority sexual preference.
Yeah, and I promised Headley I would bring up his region, which is Central America, Latin America, and how the machismo culture and the Catholic Church together, the two of those sort of together, have led to some real abuses of homosexuality, the rights of homosexual people, and how they're treated outside of Brazil, where they have actually pretty equitable treatment. What I'm saying is it's a cultural thing. The culture itself defines what's normal, and I think the religious views have a fairly moderate impact on that cultural norm. So anyone that's different from the cultural norm gets a different treatment, right? And that's probably what we're dealing with in homophobia.
Okay.